Hey, all, welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Colton here with Brandon. Welcome back. It's been a few weeks. Hope you've been enjoying the stream highlights from the Christmas charity live stream from a few weeks back. But we're back to making regular videos. Quick note on that front, however, we will be going down to one video a week. We started this channel 5 years ago?
Yeah,
4 years ago?
yeah.
And that was when we were all stuck in our houses, and it was a lot easier to make 2 videos a week back then. But with our lives getting busier, it is more practical for us to continue on a once a week schedule as opposed to more frequent. So we still love making videos. We want to continue to love making videos, and going down to once a week is going to help facilitate that. So thank you to everyone who has been watching us all this time, and we look forward to continuing this very weird project that we've been working on for the past several years. All right, let's get into the news. There's a lot of it. 5 tournaments to talk about. Most of them we can go through pretty quickly because they were relatively small. We'll start with Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Adventure Time, Standby Salvage is your winner. Caligura for Hololive in second. Overlord, Bar, Salvage, and Hololive Coronet Marine. Rest of top 8 was Bocce the Rock, Hololive, Chainsaw Man, Bang Dream. Only 15 players at this event, so over half of the field made top cut. Also, no Hololive 2, no Quince, no SDS in Malaysia. So, like, a very weird regional, very difficult to extract anything from it. But obviously, congratulations to the players and the winners. Next, the last regional of 2024 was in Singapore, 53 players. A pair of Guilty Gears on top. Bike and Soul Potemkin in first. Second place was Jacko Ram Lethal, kind of the more traditional list. Kaguya Standby Salvage in third, with an Overlord in fourth. 2 more Overlords in top 8, along with a Caligura and an 8-choice Marvel list. This event might have had some impact on the decisions that Bushiroad ended up making in the stream that we're definitely going to get to, don't you worry. Because 3 of the top 8 were Overlord. This is easily Overlord's best showing of the year, and it happened in Bushiroad's backyard in Singapore, is what Brandon was talking about before we started recording, and I think he's 100% right. I think there definitely might be some local bias in some of the decisions being made as a result of whatever tournament happens down the street.
I think it's actually really interesting also to note the Kaguya list that we saw is actually the second time we've seen that same Kaguya list, and I very likely from the same person, actually. It was in the Philippines and then Singapore, for what it's worth. So the one Kaguya, essentially one Kaguya deck that we've seen it twice now, and that's all Kaguya's representation this season that we've seen in Top Cut.
There is nothing more dangerous than a skilled player on a deck they know well that you're not expecting. That's the most dangerous thing to run into in Swiss. I would rather run into a meta list piloted by a good player that I have prepared for than an off meta list piloted by a good player that I have done no prep for. Every time. First event of 2025 was in Madrid. 82 players. Hendrickson, SDS in first. Shauna in second. Chloe Marine Hololive in third. Another Hendrickson in fourth. With Chloe Marine, Bocce the Rock, Ayakashi Triangle, 8 Pants, and an 8 Pants Slime rounding out top 8. This is probably the first event that we want to really hone in on in terms of like results that tell us a lot about the meta, just because this is a little bit bigger of a tournament and it doesn't have as many restrictions. This is your usual suspects for top 8 for the most part. SDS, Slime, no Overlord in this one, but the off-meta Shauna that's still running around, as well as Bocce the Rock, Ayakashi Triangle. Like this is none of this is surprising in this top 8. SDS getting 2 of the top 4.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially with the release then of the Macross Delta being able to get into top 8 in its real first like opportunity, I think is also very telling too.
Yes, and that Macross Delta list made top 8 in Vancouver. 153 players, same day as the Madrid regional. This is Overlord's win, Salvage Bar traditional list. The Nino Quince list, 8 Standby Hololive, which has not had a great season, but it finishes third in one of the biggest events of the year. Standby Murin Slime in fourth, with Chloe Maureen, 8 Pants Slime, 8 Standby Slime, and Macross Delta rounding out top 8. Hololive 8 Standby was clearly hit harder by the ban list than I thought it was going to be. At the very least, it was hit hard enough that people stopped playing it. And that's always the challenge, right? Like, how much of a restriction hit a list based on how much people want to play it versus how much it brought it down in terms of results, right? Like, sometimes things get hit and people just stop playing it because it got hit. And I don't know how much of that is true with 8 Standby. Um, but in any case, it definitely has not had as good of a season. But this is, kind of your pretty normal 8 Standby hollow pile. Um, just level 1 wall into level 2 wall into level 3 with Luna. Still a viable archetype, I would argue, although it's maybe less consistent than it used to be.
Oh, definitely. I mean, definitely less consistent for sure. But I mean, it definitely still has pieces, parts that can be very threatening in a bunch of different ways too.
Other decks that are interesting here, 8 Standby Slime. I think with, obviously everyone is aware net by now that Mirren is further restricted to some
Hmm.
extent, and this is a relatively viable option. It's a twin drive on a standby, right? So like Rimuru can literally go +3 if you trigger once in its 6 triggers. So definitely something there. This list plays into the Benimaru level 2. If you have a yellow card and a red card in your level, you can either stand something, so stand a standby target, or burn one. And then it plays into the Benimaru top end. So we're going to see more of this kind of thing as people try to work out how to play Slime, maybe without Mirren going forward.
Well, no, realistically, they keep Murin. They just remove the Bonder. The Bonder was the big hit from it, so you lose a little bit of consistency to get Murin, but that's really about it.
I don't disagree. Like I still think Mirren is probably the best way to play Slime, but we've seen a couple different Slime lists from the last couple of weeks that have topped without
Oh
Mirren.
yeah,
The archetype is going to get more attention because there are going to be some people who want to move off of Mirren because losing the Bonder is a big enough deal.
for sure. I think the biggest thing that you're going to see still is you're still going to see that back row hexproof package, which we see in most all of them. The back row hexproof that gives global power to the board is pretty consistently still in all of them.
Rounding out top 8 was that Venus Link Macross Delta list. It runs 6 different climaxes. If you haven't seen it yet, you should check it out. It's really fun. Happy to see it get a top because I think having more fun and interesting lists at the top tables is just generically good for the game. So happy to see that list make it. We have 5 other lists in top 16 from Vancouver, including a bar salvage sword art list, pants salvage Ayakashi Triangle, 2 different Chainsaw Man lists. Himeno Makima Aki on one hand, trying to kind of bolster the old package that got hit, and then the other newer package, Power Makima Chainsaw Man. And then, of course, a choice Standby Ruby as well.
Yeah, I think seeing those different Chainsaw Man lists are definitely like I think we're gonna see a little bit more Chainsaw Man just regarding like as the season continues on. Just a matter of like what does that look like going forward? Kind of remains to be seen still. I think I think we're gonna see more of that choice top end, but I think that the strong early game that we saw in the old package is still prevalent. So
And then finally, rounding out the tournaments that have been completed so far, 51 players in Santiago, Chile. This tournament won by a Mirrenless slime list. Milam into Benimaru, so it's not running the level 1 standby with Rimuru. It's rather running the level 1 Milam on salvage into the 2-1 Benimaru that can stand something with the standby combo and also potentially has burn ones. trying to close with 4 copies of Benimaru, the level 3 off finisher Benimaru. Chile's a bit of a weird regional. I mean, 51 players. You can look at the rest of top 8. You see Miko Sora, standby bar list with the Neg Sora package. Watame Marine, kind of that more traditional 8+ing trigger hololive list. 8 standby JoJo's coming in 4th place. Darkness making top 8 isn't even necessarily shocking, like in a vacuum. What is surprising is that it doesn't run the normal Darkness level 3 package. It doesn't run the Veneer with the level 0, the merge package. It just runs the old level 1 on reverse search into the level 3 reflect darkness that can come down early if your opponent has an early play on the board. And it just gets big. Like that's the whole package. It's and you have 4 copies of the Musashi Veneer as well. So like trying to find some damage that way. But like literally Wind Stock Soul.
Well, I mean, realistically,
Very old darkness
to be
package.
fair, that's about the last time Chile had a regional.
I don't know when Chile last had a regional, but it has been a minute as far as I remember. So props to anyone running OG Darkness in 2025. Congratulations on making top 8. Azure Lane, 8 Pants Spy, and Chloe Marine rounding out top 8. But yeah, like, I want to make it very clear that, like, we're not trying to, like, play down people's accomplishments in these events. Like, if you win a regional, you top a regional, I don't care how few players there are. Like, that's significant. It matters, right? But when you're trying to do meta analysis, you have to take the results from places like Malaysia, where you don't have all of Hololive and Quints and SDS, or from Chile with 51 players, with a little grain of salt. Like, Guilty Gear going 1-2 in Singapore does not suddenly mean that Guilty Gear is like an A tier deck. As much as I think Guilty Gear is quite good, like you have to kind of relate what you're seeing in the results to how valuable that data is to the larger data set. So just to like make it absolutely clear, like on an individual level, every event matters and is important. For meta analysis, some events give you more information than others. All right, so those are the results from tournaments. I don't think any of that is the other reason that we don't really want to spend a whole lot of time talking about tournament results and what it might mean for the meta is because the meta is completely different again. Um, 3 major changes on the ban list announced in the last Bushiroad stream. Slime's Mirin Shizu restriction has had the level 1 Mirin Bonder added to it, so it's choose one of 3. Essentially a soft ban on the Bonder.
Mm-hmm.
Overlord is on the restriction list now. Choose one of 3 between Eins, level 1 Shaltir, and the level 2 that on play draw 2, ditch 2, and gets a bunch of power. SDS has also had an additional restriction. It's a choose one of 4 between the Gil Thunder, the Escanor, the Stock Swap, and the Fumio.
The latter two being the ones added to the ban list that was already there. Yeah.
And I should say half Fumio.
We don't have true Fumio anymore. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, we don't have true Fumio anymore. Too many people have nightmares about Aqua Megamine. That being said, a much lighter touch than I think a lot of people were expecting. Definitely some people were hoping for like an outright Mirin ban or an outright Eins ban. Like, I don't think those were ever really on the table.
No, I think the big thing for Slime they were
Um,
thinking about was going to be the adding the 2-1 back row into that instead of the Bonder. So that way
mm,
you couldn't have Hexproof and Mirren on the same board. That was one of the big ones that we're
yeah.
looking at.
If anything, like, I don't know. If I were a Slime player, I think I'd rather lose the Shuna than lose the Bonder. Like, the Shuna offers you Hexproof, but Hexproof only has so many uses right now. Like, there aren't that many things that are trying to disrupt your board at level 2.
Well, the big thing was the global power. Slime doesn't have a lot of global power.
Sure, but you can find other power if you really need to. Like there are other power pieces in slime.
Standby, yeah.
Yes, for one, yes. If I was a slime player, I would be like, dang, that really reduces my mirror inconsistency. I don't think it's enough for me. Like as someone who does not play slime, right? I'm actually just gonna kick this over to you because you actually do play slime. Does this do enough for a slime player who is trying to play slime to go to worlds? Does this change move that player off of slime, or can you still or is slime still a top tier deck?
I think that there are quite a few decks that are coming out here quickly that make this not necessarily the top of the meta as it was for the longest time. I think the hit and consistency is enough to like make it maybe like 3, 4 as opposed to number one kind of idea, or at least contention for number one. I think that these hits drop the consistency enough to bring it down beneath some of the stuff that's about to come out.
And that was something that they said, right? And this is the reason for the lighter touch, which honestly, like one of the things that I have griped about with the ban list over the years has been that it feels like Bushiroad takes a massive hammer to the stuff that's at the top of the meta right before something that is as good as that or sometimes better comes out. We saw it with MTI, we saw it with Quince, we saw it with Hololive. Like they do this sweeping ban and just nuke the best deck out of the sky right before another thing comes in and just becomes the dominant deck, right? They didn't do that this time. To their credit. Like they didn't just make slime unplayable. They didn't make Overlord or SDS unplayable. They could have done that. They've done that before, multiple times now. But they didn't do that. So credit to them for that. These other two restrictions, Overlord, like I mean, you and I beat this horse to death. We don't have to talk about this too much, I don't think. I was already only scared of like the top 12 Overlord players in the world, and I think those players are probably moving off of Overlord. I think that it's not the Shell tier, it's the 2-1. Like the 2-1 allows you to dig for another Eins, it allows you to dig for another bar. I think that card's really important to them, and I think effectively losing that hurts.
Yeah, are there some other pieces that can try to help to make up some of that? Yes, but are they going to be as effective as that card was? I don't think as much.
The thing that made Overlord at all dangerous was player skill. The deck has a super high ceiling, but it has a super low floor, and it took a really good player to get the ceiling result out of Overlord with any consistency. And we've seen that in the results, right? Because you don't see 4 to 6 Overlords topping, even in a top 16 environment. You usually get one, maybe two, right? The only time you got three was in Bushiroad's backyard, which I still think might have been a factor that played into this. But in any case, I think those players that were taking Overlord to the top tables might be off of Overlord now. I don't know. We'll have to ask Jason.
Well, they also streamed on when the band list came out and talked about it. Check their Twitch VODs. It should be there probably.
We can put a link in the description. And then SDS. This is also a relatively light hit. They don't want to deal with Escanor, so they leave Escanor alone. It's Hendrickson that they're keeping an eye on. They don't like the consistency of Hendrickson being able to do all this damage for a relatively low stock cost alongside both a Fumio and a half Fumio and a stock swap.
Yeah. They have another kind of half Fumio, um, but it costs a little bit more, so it's just a little bit more expense off the top to make
Yeah.
it happen. So
And isn't it also in yellow? It's the back row
yeah,
pig, right?
but I think it's just the fact that it's not as cheap is actually the big thing. I think the additional cost on that may take away an additional lane of combo, or
Swap.
maybe you just play trees and it doesn't matter anyway.
I think out of these three sets of restrictions, Seven Deadly Sins is the one that recovers most quickly and loses less of a place in the meta as a
Yeah, I
result.
think the Overlord hit was a little bit harder than the other two for sure, but ultimately, I think that just the hit that each of them got was enough to be able to anticipate some of the things coming out.
But at the same time, I'm not going to complain about a lighter hit
Oh no, absolutely.
for sure. Like I'm certainly not going to complain about them leaving decks playable, or at least trying to leave decks playable. I would prefer that to some of the just catastrophic hits we've seen in the past. So on that same stream, a couple more announcements. Licorice Recoil 2 happening in June. Hatsune Miku, Project Sekai, Trial Deck and Booster coming to EN. Disney Mirrorverse, Trial Deck and Booster will be Asia only. But Licorice Recoil and Project Sekai both June 27th, with Mirrorverse July 25th. We also got confirmation of trios. BSF is changing to Summerfest, May through September. Get ready for one of the 3 lanes to be Nikkei.
Mhm.
Yeah!
And the other one to be Bunny Girl.
Yeah, it's going to be Nikkei, Bunny Girl, and I don't know, whatever. But hey, look, we kept
Hmm.
trios. I was really legitimately worried that they might nerf trios. They didn't. Thank you, Bushy Road. We appreciate it. Uh, yeah. Honestly, more good than bad from Bushy Road in this stream. Like, more, like, heavily region locked sets is not great. But Project Sekai is really cool. Like Oreko 2 is cool. We're getting trios back, and the ban list wasn't a disaster. All in all, a successful stream.
Fair.
But yeah, here's the upcoming English schedule. Next thing up is Blue Archive. Quince is out and will be legal for Chicago. So if you're going to Chicago, like we are,
Yeah, and the
just
and
be
the
aware
video
of
should
it.
be out before Chicago, so that's even more exciting.
Yeah, yeah. This video should go out before I get on my train. Germany is also February 1st.
So if you see Colton there, say hi.
But yeah, Germany and Chicago this upcoming weekend, and we'll be talking about those results in a couple of weeks. Also worth mentioning, the WSEC, the Weiss Schwarz European Championship, is getting underway February 1st. Obviously, we're in the States. This doesn't really affect us a whole lot. We're probably not going to be covering it too closely, but we do want to at least make sure that people know that it's happening. Link to Avis's page on Weiss Tea Time about it. A lot of details on that page. So if you live in Europe and you want to play Weiss, and you want to play in some kind of competition, particularly if you live in Austria, Belgium, France, Germany, Hungary, Italy, Portugal, Slovenia, Spain, or the UK, there you go. We'll put that link in the description. And I think that's all we got. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back next week with something. I don't know what. That's Brandon's job. But we'll have a video up, and then we'll go from there. So, best of luck to everyone at upcoming events. Good to be back making videos again, and hopefully we'll see you in Chicago. Until next time, thank you so much for joining us. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and have a good one.
We'll see you then.